Hello and welcome to Patito's Gang. I'm Nenna Jemie. When it comes to development of the economy, each state tries to outshine the other. But how can we ensure that this competition is healthy competition? The gang discusses this. Let's see what they have to say.
Competitiveness globally is what nations survive in spite of natural resources. Studies have shown that nations without natural endowments are more prosperous than those with natural environment. The question is, how do we bring Nigeria, our leaders especially, how do we school them to think competitive in terms of the economy? How do we make our economy to be more competitive in the global market space? Because that is what nations like Japan, without any natural endowment, basically, when 2/3 of Japan is not habitable, only 1/3 of Japan is habitable. But Japan is an economic force to reckon with. The same with China, the same with some other Asian countries, the same with some of these, even European countries, without natural endowments, but they are more competitive economically. And how can we get our leaders in Nigeria to be more competitive? Gentlemen.
I think this topic is very, very apt in the sense that competition is what drives the world economy. And people compete from the areas they have advantage. But when you have a rent-seeking economy, there's nothing to be competitive about. For instance, we are a rent-seeking economy where our rents come from oil. So, what are we competing about? We are interested in just consuming, not in creating wealth. Those nations you mentioned, like Japan, they discovered that they were resource poor, materially, but they were intellectually high. Mm-hmm. Because we are resource rich,
yes.
Our mental capacity is very low. So it's a very big problem. Because our leaders love pleasure. Mm-hmm. And whosoever loves pleasure will not be willing to submit himself or herself to intellectual rigor that creates ambience for competitiveness. This is one of the challenges that we have in Nigeria and in most of Africa.
Well, my take on it is that we are basically resource-based is not a disease, neither should it be a crime. I think where we failed was that we had the wrong leadership at the onset. Because like we receive almost all our forex receipts from oil. If we fail to add value to whatever we have, we remain stagnant, we remain where we are. Countries that have moved forward radically are those who really go the way of value addition. This is where our oil is just a crude commodity that is sent out. Even agriculture base also suffer the same fate. We get cocoa, we get palm oil, we get rubber, we get cotton, we export this and bring back in return almost 10 times the value of what we sold because we are not able to add value to it. So what we are looking at for now to get Nigeria out of this bondage are leaders that are far-sighted. Leaders with what we call leaders with policy intelligence, who have the global outlook in terms of their reasoning and reckoning, which implied there must be leaders that are at home with policy issues and the dynamics in the economic environment. Yeah. If we have leaders that have to rely on third, fourth forces to coach them, then we may really find it difficult to move.
And it's also very, very important, based on what you have just said, for us to look at it from this point that our leaders needs to be reoriented. They need to have a school where they need to be taught how to manage economy. In our economy, what you see is that we all know that we are rich in many minerals and everything, but we are mentally lazy and we focus all our attention into one product. And that alone is a problem to Nigeria. But let's take it a little bit further. The topic is about how can our leaders utilize the opportunities that we have. How can they be taught to utilize the opportunities that they're staggering, looking at them in the face? One thing we found that there have to be competition. And that competition have to be rewarded. We take clue from what is happening here in Lagos State. Every other state, and people will argue, oh yeah, Lagos used to be what do you call it again, state capital or national capital. But that's not what it is. It's one man that have a vision, that lay down the blueprint in which Lagos operates and work out of. So we can take it off from there and make sure that other states, government, if they don't know, no matter whatever they are, if they come into power, the first thing they do is to bring them to a working state so they can learn from there.
I know that Lagos is a bellwether state, but in the 60s, when we had regions, that was obtainable. The three major regions were competing, but it was a healthy competition.
Yes.
When Awolowo set up WNDC, the first television house in Africa, they had TV first before Canada.
Yes.
Then Okpara in the east said, okay, you had this, establish a university, establish a bank, you know. Then Ahmadu Bello in the north also started doing stuff.
That's the competition. That's the competition we are talking about.
Yes. But when after the Civil War, the structure changed. We now operate a unitary system because the constitution they had, the military gave us.
It was a unitary system.
And it's still the same constitution we have.
In a disguise
of
democracy.
Yes. Exactly.
Yes.
So that's why one of the reasons why things are, you know,
and we
cannot be competitive under this structure.
In other words, the idea or the clamor for restructuring can only take place when we think competitiveness. And
competitiveness can happen when we restructure. Yes.
And why it is very important is because, let's take for instance, a particular state wants to make sure that its citizens have the best possible. This other one is thinking about the best possible answer for its own citizens. When leaders in these states begin to think that way, they begin to think, what do I have that I can use to make the life of my citizens better? Instead of just the consumption where they go to Abuja, collect whatever it is, and even when they collect that, they don't use it to develop the resource base in those, because this country, every state has what it takes to be independent.
That's right.
If they actually work on it. But like I said, because we are a rent-seeking country, and our leaders, the emerging leaders, the present one, have grown up with the mentality of just collect rent and don't bother. And when you collect the rent, you go and spend it in Dubai, go and spend it in Saudi Arabia, go and spend it in America, go and spend it in Britain, and put the money there. So that rent they collect from us, they go and put it in other people's country.
And taking it further, we have always been ruled. We've always been ruled by poor people. Poor people in the sense that they might have all the cash, but they have a mentality of a poor man.
Yes.
And that's exactly the point you're making.
Yes.
We've been ruled ever since the history, almost since the history, especially after the Civil War.
Yes.
By people with poverty mentality. Poverty mentality.
Yes. Yes. Because,
you know? Because I don't get it.
Yes.
And it's that poverty mentality that would make someone to steal from the treasury, to dip his hand, you know, from
take money that he does not need.
He does not need,
you know,
to go and do something. And tomorrow, when their children go mad and all that, they'll be wondering who is responsible for all of this.
Yes, I said this thing here in one of the episodes, and I told people that, you know what? Our leaders have thrown shame to the winds. It used to be in those days when, if you're a leader, the first thing that will be melted into your ear would not to touch public funds. As a matter of fact, it was a taboo. You can steal any other thing, but whatever belongs to the public. You all knew the area I'm talking about.
That's right.
But today, it's a different thing. But let's take it a little bit further, because I just don't want to sit and be going through what our leaders are doing, what are not doing, what are they. I think we need to find solution to this thing. Yes. And one of the solutions, I think, and I've mentioned here, is educating our leaders to be competitive.
Okay, just hold the thought. I'll come back to both of you, but we need to really need to go on break, and we'll be right back after this time out. Don't go away.
The gang believes that leaders should be schooled on prosperity because currently they're more concerned with consuming rather than creating. What are your thoughts? Let's hear from you.
When the government is seen that way, it will be reduced. We don't want people that are just striving to get there.
We believe that we young people, we want an inclusion, in the government of today. And based on the kind of a person, we are vibrant, we are energetic. So I will advise the government, the way they can bring prosperity for all is to make a policy that is people-oriented, especially youth-oriented. You understand? We have to make sure that we encourage them to make it as a point of duty that every policy they are making for the betterment of the youth. Because majority, 50% of the population of Nigeria are actually the youth. So, and for a nation to be progressive, the youth must be empowered. People's oriented policy is very key, no matter how. And we have to take it to them. We have to let them know that, see, we are people that is the future of this country. And whatever policy you are making, it has to be for us. In the aspect of education, education in Nigeria is nothing to write home about. They have to invest more in education. We have to invest more in research. We have to invest in the small scale and medium enterprises. These are what can develop our economy. These are what can make prosperity to go round.
For a suggestion, the suggestion is that we should tell our leaders, our policymakers, to implement a law to ban leaders from sending their children abroad for schooling, for education. When we make it compulsory, or we mandate this on them, that they should have their children schooling in Nigeria here, I think attention will be paid to our school, federal universities, because when you go to our federal universities, most of them are nothing to write home about, nothing to show for it, in terms of research, in terms of academic standards. So, and that is one. Then the area of health sector, if you can tell our leaders to enact a law such a way that all our leaders will be treated here in Nigeria, in our country, I think our public hospitals and our private hospitals will do better.
Yeah, we are still talking about economic competitiveness and how we can school our leaders to think competitive. And you were saying about educating the people.
Yes, our people. Because
you wanted to jump in.
Yes,
so,
we are talking about solution here now. Because the truth of the matter is we are not living in a different space. Everybody in Nigeria knows that our leaders have failed us. But what can we do moving forward becomes the litmus test that everybody have to key in. So one of the areas that I think we can be helpful to them is to make sure that the system in which they come into office is well scrutinized.
The process.
The process. Another way is that even when they arrive at that seat, there must be reorientation of what it means to be
I think
a
this is important.
Is usually when people when people are recruited or employed in offices, they are sent for orientation.
Yes.
To be able to acclimatize them, get them with the culture of the organization.
Yes.
But in our public office, although they do that now, but question is, what manner of acculturization are given to our leaders when they come to public space?
I think that's where the issue of followership comes in.
Yes.
We elect people to lead us, and we fold our hands and abandon the stage for the next 4 years.
Yes.
That is basically wrong.
Yes.
what we need to get them back on course is what I would refer to as continuous learning.
Continuous engagement.
Anybody who has got to the end of the road in terms of reading or studying is a dead person. When they get to office, we need to have a structured program of continuous learning. And also strengthen public engagement with the leadership.
I'll tell you one story.
The public engagement I'm talking about is some of what we have in some states going on now, like town hall meetings. Let there be feedback from the people you are leading.
Yeah, and also,
are you on track? Are you missing the road? Are you missing the target? Because there are electoral promises.
Yeah, we need to change.
Question the role of civil society organization.
We need to begin to let them know, educate them, let them know that, listen, office holder, as an office holder, you are responsible for the people. You are responsible for everything that happens in that office. And your name, most importantly, is at stake.
And that is where we want to bring the young people that say they want to take over leadership right now. Because the young people say they want to lead. So they must begin to understand these dynamics that we are contesting. Competitiveness. What are you coming to bring into the space that's different from what these people are doing, which we don't like? Are you willing to pay the price? Are you willing to think about the things you can, in your state, in your government, whatever place it is, what can we use to be better?
We can use statistics.
So that's what the youth should be thinking.
A leader, for instance, a Nigerian president, a governor, a minister, should look at the West African market, for instance.
Yes.
Nigeria's economy, the size of Nigeria's economy is about 79% of West African entire economy.
Yes.
A wise leader will look at, okay, what can we do to make sure that we dominate this market? Move on
export
our people, our skills, products, everything.
Yes, I also would like to bring this conversation to another segment of it. If you notice, most of our leaders, once they get into an office, automatically they become rich, and nobody asks them.
No, because of the system. Yeah, the
dependency in the system.
Yeah, there's an amount of money. Once you get into office,
and not just that,
they just give you. You're automatically
there's two things
a billionaire.
No, there are still things here at play. One is, if it's after office that they begin to display this wealth, we will say, okay, they hid it all along. But while they are on that seat, they are buying houses, doing all manner of things, and everybody just kind of keep quiet. I can name one governor that, prior to him becoming a governor, just doesn't have a whole lot of money.
The issue of competitiveness.
But today, he owns houses within the state.
That's something that happens.
Listen, just a second. That's what I'm saying, that while they're in the office, we cannot wait until they come out. They must be held accountable as they are in that office. If you are buying this and we get a whiff that this thing belongs to can't we mobilize? And that's what we call social revolt.
Yeah, even if they're doing all of that, the point is that how do we leave the state better than we met it? How do we leave the country and be more competitive out there?
It's about values.
You know,
values of
now,
thinking.
We should look at the Minister of Trade, for instance, the Minister of Finance and all that. We're focusing on our environment.
Yes.
Our manufacturers are focusing on our environment.
Yes.
The market, everything is around this environment.
Universities are not attracting foreign students.
Yes. Meanwhile, our children are going out there. To set up a university in Nigeria will cost you, in fact, they said if you don't have 20 billion and all that. Yes. Meanwhile, in Benin Republic, that's why people, when Nigerians set up universities in Benin Republic, they begin to wonder, why are we? Because over there, they have made environments to be more competitive.
Yes.
If you want to teach one course, they give you a license to operate.
Yes.
You know, from a place, then you begin to expand. As you expand, they give you a license. And now, until you have all those things,
where in the world there are policies that are deliberately established in this country to make competitiveness impossible.
Yes.
At whatever level, whether it's in the education sector,
I agree on
in
that.
the health sector,
These
policies of government
are
established to make competitiveness impossible.
Yes.
Even for the states, for individuals. So you can't compete. What are you going to compete about?
Yeah.
So that's why even government, federal, for instance, cannot think in terms, how do we empower our universities, federal universities, to attract foreign students?
Yeah.
And foreign students bring in foreign exchange.
Yes.
So how do we make our health institution to attract foreign personnel to come and work? So because the system, the policies are set up in such a way that these things are not possible. So you can't compete with yourself. Neither are you competing with anybody. So we see us running in circles.
It's amazing. It's
Running in
amazing.
circles.
Sorry, it's amazing how we have gotten to this low in our lives.
So what do we do?
I think
Change of
Yes.
one, I mentioned at the start of this program that while we have leadership, there's also responsibility on the part of the followers. When we vote people into office, we don't fold our hands and go to sleep. We need both party level and civil society organizations need strong public policy engagement.
Yeah.
Whoever we have served with responsibility to lead us for the next 4 years, we should seek constant and consistent engagement.
Yes.
Within 6 months, if you hold, for example, 2 town meetings, that's average of once in 3 months. In the 6 months, the leader will know whether he should quit office
Or stay.
And not town hall meetings that are teleguided.
Where
you invite people, only those that are.
That's why I brought in the responsibility of the civil society organizations.
Yes.
They need to be watched up. When the military was in power,
yes,
the civil society organizations were very, very vibrant.
Yes.
And they led the crusade to get the military to go back to the barracks.
Yeah,
but the moment the military left from the barracks,
I agree with you.
They also went to bed.
I agree with you in the areas of
public
not just public engagement, but reevaluating at a certain time in the office. Let's say 6 months. There have to be
more like monitoring and evaluation.
For people to know this is where I am. You know, in the United States, they have what they call 100 days in office. And
they have it here too.
No, wait a minute. That's my word. It's a timing something.
Yeah.
It means that it determines a whole lot.
Yes.
So you can now begin to reassess yourself and say, am I in the right track or am I in the wrong track? Is my policy aligned with where we think it should be? If not, we make a U-turn.
Joe, you have worked with African Union or something on peer review.
Yeah, we did Africa peer review mechanism.
Yes.
The issue is that every country, Nigeria has the greatest competitive capacity in the whole of Africa, in different. But like I said, the challenge we have is the deliberate policies we made for ourselves to underdevelop ourselves. It's so unfortunate. We make policies to underdevelop ourselves.
Like which policy? Can you help me?
No, because there's no time.
Yes. For instance,
there's no time to because we really have to go, because if we go into this, it's a different ballgame.
Yes.
You know, and time is not our friend. Anytime we discuss issues like this, but the point is made that we need to make policies that will enable competitiveness, for us to compete within and amongst ourselves, and also to compete outside, you know, in Africa, in the whole world, because the whole world will not stand still, you know, and watch you, because everybody is thinking of how do we get ahead, but we're sitting down there believing that whatever we have is, you know. So on that note, it's been a wonderful time, and we hope to see you some other time.
In conclusion, the gang advises that leaders be schooled on how to manage the economy, and healthy competition between states should be rewarded. Well, that's all we have for you today on Patito's Gang. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you found today's episode to be informative and enlightening. Join the conversation. Follow us on all our social media pages displayed right there on your screen. I am Nenna Jemye. And until next time, take care and be well.